Welcome back to Runnerverse. I'm Andrew, and in this video I'm playing Keyforge, the Alliance format. So if you haven't been keeping up with the Keyforge news, Ghost Galaxy Games has acquired Keyforge from Fantasy Flight Games. They raised a bunch of money for the next set, Winds of Exchange, and they announced some changes to what the main formats will be for organized play, for official organized play. Unofficially, players can play any format they want, stores can run events what they want, but if they want to lock down some official formats, they threw out some pitches that weren't super well received, and they made some adjustments, which do seem to be pretty well received. I'm not going to cover all of that, but I am going to try out this new format, which is the Alliance format, in which you construct your own deck. So if you know Keyforge, you know that every deck is unique, and you cannot make changes to your deck. You also know that every deck has 3 pods of 12 cards from 3 different houses. So the Alliance format is that you can pick up to 3 decks and mix and match the house pods. So take all 12 cards of one house, mix them or combine them with all 12 cards of a house from a different deck, and all 12 cards of a house from a different deck. All 3 houses have to be different. You don't have to have 3 different decks. You could just mix, maybe like swap one pod out from one house and put in a different one, and so on. And with the most recent changes, they added the caveat that you also have to combine only decks of the same expansion set, which I will say I was a little disappointed by, but I think most people generally agree that it is for the best because of how broken it would have been. Otherwise, there could have been extremely powerful decks, infinite combo. Even for a day or two, I threw together a combo deck that definitely was just a 2-card I win combo when drawn. So this will mitigate that, although because of Legacy card and Maverick cards, might not exclude it completely. But yeah, it certainly reins things in on average. And I'll say for myself, I have what I feel like is a kind of high number of decks, but I know some people have like hundreds of decks, and my decks I have maybe a few dozen that are opened. I have some that are unopened as well. I prefer to keep most of them that way. I did open a few more to see what I could do with combining, but it definitely feels a lot more restrictive when you only have like 5, 6, 10 decks of a particular set, rather than when I was looking at my full collection and being able to build anything. So today I'm going to try out the format with a Worlds Collide deck against a Mass Mutation deck. They both have some spicy stuff in them. I don't know that I'm the best deck constructor. I like to try to do crazy stuff more than I try to build the best deck possible. Let's just have some fun and see how it plays out. So the first player actually has a 7-card hand. The second player will have a 6-card hand, but I've already performed a mulligan for that player, so they're going to have 5. Which will impact their first turn, and that's pretty much it. First player with their 7 cards actually only gets to play 1 card, and I think that is going to be Hapsis. So this is a Logos creature from the deck, the Chancellor of Ledzant. So I'll have links to all the decks in the description. If you want to look this up, you'll see that the deck has, I think, 4 copies of this creature in it. It's a beefy 5 power mutant, and after it beats up an enemy creature, it gets warded and you get to draw a card. So that could be pretty nice. And we just play that. Creatures come into play exhausted. You can only play 1 card as the first player, so we'll end our turn by readying it. And then player 2 with their 5 cards, let's see what they can do. We're going to choose House Dis and play a Brabble, which is a little 2-power creature. When it's destroyed, the opponent will lose 1 amber. Unless it's not your turn, in which case they lose 3 amber. So if they kill it, they have to pay the price. And again, this is from Lonnie A. Restobelt VIII, if you wanted to look that one up. So again, creature will come in exhausted, and they'll also play Mindfire. So this is an action. It's going to do its effect and then be discarded. It says your opponent discards a random card from their hand. Steal an amber for each bonus icon on that card. So I'll roll a die to resolve that. This will be 1 through 3, 4 through 6, etc. Re-rolling as necessary. 8 will be this card here is discarded. It did not have a bonus icon, and wow, this is actually a card that player 1 was really looking forward to, which is United Action. I do have a little bit of a combo with United Action. Not as good as a Library Access combo would be, but this is going to impede their dream scenario for sure. With that, that is all the discards that player 2 has. They can do as much as they want with House Dis, but nothing with the other 2 houses in their deck, so they'll end their turn by readying it and drawing until they have 6 cards in hand. I gotta say, that is not a great way to start out this game for player 1 here. They could have Hapsis fight the Brabble, but again, they lose 3 amber for that, but they don't have any amber. So maybe Logos is fine. And yeah, you know what? Let's do it while we have no amber. So we'll call House Logos, and we'll have these creatures fight, exhaust the attacker, targeting the defender. They both deal damage equal to their power to each other. So Hapsis is going to take 2 damage, and the Brabble is going to take 5 damage. And because 5 is greater than or equal to its 2 power, it will be destroyed, which triggers its destroyed effect. And nothing happens because player 1 doesn't have any amber. Hapsis's effect does occur, so it destroyed a creature in a fight, so it gets warded, and we get to draw another card. It's not Logos, so we won't get to use it. But then we'll play Dysania, which is a 4-power creature. Cause our opponent discard all of their archived cards, but they don't have any. So it's just going to be a 4-power creature that we bring out and end our turn. We have 5 cards, so we get a 6th. I think we're going to choose House Untamed. And we have to play the Bumblebird first because it has the alpha ability, which means if we had done anything else first, we wouldn't be able to play it at all. It only has 1 power, but when we play it, we get to put 2 + 1 power counters on each of our other untamed creatures, of which we have none. And this is from Argo Feather Spawn of Avaclaw. And it is a beast, which means Lumilu likes its company because when it reaps, we gain an amber for each of our other friendly beasts. So we're not going to be able to do that this turn, but if we did that in the future, we could. And this is a little risky because they could easily kill both of our creatures by fighting, but we have to hope they don't choose Logos again, because if they do, I mean, that would be 3 Logos turns in a row, and they wouldn't really probably be doing much from their hand. So hopefully they don't just kill our creatures outright. And I think we'll just end the turn there. And I think they were right. We'd rather play something else. So we're also going to choose House Untamed, starting out with the Fuzzy Gruen from the Gentleman of Imberthwaite. Weird string of consonants to string together. So the first thing that happens is we get 2 amber. So I think those are the first bonus icons we've seen this game. But yeah, we get 2 amber immediately, and this is the currency to win the game. When you start your turn with 6 of them, you will spend them in order to forge a key, and when you forge your 3rd key, you immediately win the game. So we're playing this, and it says play, your opponent gains 1. So we are giving our opponent 1 as well. That's the cost for having a 5-power creature that gives you 2 amber, I suppose. We'll also play the Imprinted Murmuk. 3-power elusive means it's hard to attack and kill, and our keys cost 1 less, so only 5 instead of 6. We'll also play a Bramble Lynx, which has 3 power and skirmish, which means it is a good attacker. It doesn't take damage in return. And if we had reaped this turn, it would enter play ready, but we did not, so it's exhausted. And I'll also play Low Dawn, again, immediately getting 1 amber. And then its effect is that if we have stuff in our discard pile, we do something or other, but all we wanted was that amber, so this will be discarded. That's all we can do because we can't use Logos cards because we chose House Untamed. So I'll end my turn there, and with 2 cards, I get to refill with 4 more cards. And I think player 2 is actually going to choose Untamed again. So first up, we have this Wild Bounty, which is pretty awkward. It's not going to do anything for us. Part of the power of this card is the fact that it has Enhance and then 2 amber symbols, which means when the deck was generated, 2 amber bonus icons were put onto cards that normally wouldn't necessarily have them. And because we're using the Alliance format and we mixed up our decks, I don't actually know if we have any of the, if we're benefiting from any of those enhancements. I just really wanted to play with these beast synergies, and the Untamed, this deck in general doesn't have a lot of bonus icons, so this card is kind of sucking here. Which is definitely a downside. But then I'm going to go ahead and play Floomf. And this is a 3-power creature with skirmish. Again, makes it a good fighter. And when it fights, we can give one of our beasts 2 + 1 power counters. And now we have 3 beasts, so we can reap from Lumilu with a bunch of extra amber. But instead, I'll first play Song of the Wild, which I saved last turn. And it paid off, at least, somewhat for the remainder of the turn. When each of our friendly creatures gains reap, gain 1 amber, which means after it reaps, gain 1 amber. Reaping is an effect that all creatures can do, which just means exhaust and get 1 amber. But because of the effect of Song of the Wild, that kicks in and we get another amber. We also reap with Lumilu, which again means exhaust it and gain 1 amber. Because of Song of the Wild, we get an extra one. And because of Lumilu's ability, it says reap, gain an amber for each other friendly beast. We have 2 more beasts, so we get 2 more amber. And just like that, we have 7 amber. Even without the one that our opponent gave us from the Gruen, we would still have enough to threaten forging a key. So we're going to end our turn and say check, which is a warning to our opponent that if they don't cause us to lose some of that amber, we are going to be able to forge a key. All right, well, we don't want that to happen again. So we're going to choose Logos and we're going to fight with Hapsis. So we're going to have the Hapsis fight the Lumilu, which means Hapsis is going to deal 5 damage to that, which will kill it. The Lumilu will deal 4 damage back, but Hapsis was warded, so instead it just loses the ward. And then because it defeated a creature, it's going to get a ward and we draw a card. And then we'll have Dysania attack as 4 power, kill that Floomf, which will deal 3 damage back. And then we're going to play 2 more copies of our friend Hapsis and try to keep them on the board, but our battle line is already getting big as we end our turn here. But they haven't done anything to stop us, so we will spend 6 amber and forge a key. Thank you very much. We'll choose House Logos also, and we're going to play Dimension Door. So we do have a bonus icon on this card, which says we immediately draw a card, and looks like that was one that was added on by an enhance ability. For the rest of the turn, whenever we reap, we steal it instead of gaining it from the supply. Oh, and this is our first Logos card from this deck. So that's Bronson Conservatory Redeemer. But we're not going to be using that effect. So we just got that draw card, got it out of the way. Then I'm going to play Mind Over Matter, which says put each creature into its owner's archives. So all of this is going to go away. Almost, although because this is warded, I believe that ward will prevent it from leaving play. That one will stay. Everything else is going to the archives. The archives, you can see the archives over here, I believe. This player 2's archives is just off camera, so we'll send the Bumblebird over there. And at the start of a player's turn, they can choose to take all of the cards in their archive into their hand for a potentially a bigger turn. This Hapsis is still around, but we're going to go ahead and play Standardized Testing, which destroys the biggest power creature and the lowest power creature, but Hapsis is the only one around, so he's dead. This does have a capture amber icon, which means we would take one of our opponent's amber and put it onto one of our creatures. We don't have any, so we're not going to do it. But if that creature died, the opponent would get it back. We're just holding it hostage temporarily. We cleared the board, but that was all of our Logos this turn. So we'll end our turn and refill our hand to 6. So now player 1 could pick up their archive. They've got some Logos cards and some Untamed, but their hand is all Star Alliance. So I think we'll do that. So first up we have Transporter Platform, which means we get an amber right away from that icon. This is an artifact, which means it's going to come into play exhausted. We can't use it this turn because it's exhausted, but on a future turn they'll be able to use an action to return a friendly creature and each of its upgrades to their hand. Play another artifact, so again, not using it this turn. Each player is going to get 2 amber immediately though, which is nice because that's going to mean we can threaten a key. But it means creatures can't fight unless their owner is willing to lose 4 amber. And then destroy the piece of cord. Play Information Officer Gray. When we play with him, fight with him, or reap with him, we can reveal a non-Star Alliance card from our hand and archive it, but we don't have any of those, so we'll just be putting him down. We have Chief Engineer Walls. He is elusive, and when he plays fights or reap, we can return an upgrade or robot from our discard pile to our hand. We don't have any of those, so we'll just put him out there. And First Officer Frayne. Play fight or reap, a friendly creature captures 1. So this time we actually do get to capture 1, and we'll put on the elusive guy. And she'll be able to use that ability in the future as well. We also have a stunner, which will give us an amber, and that's going to attach or upgrade one of our creatures, and when it gains the ability that whenever it fights or reaps, we can stun a creature. And I think I'll put that on First Officer Frayne, and that was 6 cards and 7 amber total, so our opponent has to try to stop us from forging a key. And of course, we then also get to refill our hand to 6 fresh ones. And that was a big turn to recover the board. It is a scary board. I guess we're going to play this. So we'll play Sarcofiend, 4 power, 2 armor. So that prevents the first 2 damage it would take each turn. And when it's destroyed, we get to steal 1 amber outright. But we're not going to be able to prevent our opponent. Essence Scale. I will say that is a weakness of my deck building and deck selection, is I like to do my own thing. I don't really think about messing with my opponent too much. And in Keyforge, it actually is pretty important to be able to stop your opponent from forging keys, steal their amber, capture their amber, things like that. This is, again, an artifact, so we'll be able to use that in the future. And Dominator Bauble, both of those cards let us use our creatures that don't necessarily match our active house of Dis, but not this turn. So we'll just ready up and get 3 more cards. Not nearly as good of a turn as player 1's. And player 1 will start out by forging a key. So now it's 1-1 and see what they've got going on. I think we're just going to choose Star Alliance again because we have 3 creatures. We can reap 3 times. And on top of that, we're going to be able to do some more stuff as well. So we can reap with him. We get 1 amber for that. We also use his ability to get a robot or upgrade back, but we don't have one. Information Officer Gray can reap, and his ability is when we reap, we can reveal a non-Star Alliance from our hand and archive it. And let's scare our opponent a little bit by revealing and archiving this key charge, which is a way to cheat out a key. And we'll reap with First Officer Fane, which means we get to stun a creature because of the stunner. So Sarco Fiend, next time it activates, all it can do is drop its stunned status. Also, her ability lets us capture an amber. So let's spread that out and maybe put that here. Also play Light of the Archons, which is an upgrade that gives us an amber and gives a creature +1 power and armor for each of its upgrades. So we'll make her into a 6 with 2 armor. And we'll play Zap just because we have it. We get another amber, and it deals a damage to a creature for each house represented among creatures. Only Star Alliance and Dis, so it's going to be 2 damage, and it has 2 armor, so it prevents that. So at least we got an amber out of it. And now we have 6 amber, threatening another key, and end our turn. You know what? As I was readying my Star Alliance creatures at the end of the turn, I realized I also have this transporter platform, which we can return a friendly creature in each of its upgrades to our hand. So we can use that, exhaust that, and return First Officer Fane and each upgrade attached to our hand, which is nice because then we can play her, capture another amber, and then play both of these upgrades again and get 2 more amber just to rub it in a little bit. And then ready. So that's not good. I think the best we can do again is choose Dis again. So we're going to play another Essence Scales, which another one of the we already have. So we get another amber. We can exhaust our Sarco Fiend to lose the stun status at least. And then we can play Pain Reaction, which gives us another amber up to 3. Deal 2 damage to an enemy creature. And if it kills it, each of its neighbors also takes 2. So we can deal 2 to this guy. Fortunately, he was right in the middle. The captured amber comes back to us. And then 2 damage is going on to each of these creatures. But unfortunately, that's not enough to kill them. And that's all we have. So we still just have 5 amber, and they're going to be forging their second key. Now it's time to do something a little bit fun. We're going to choose House Logos and take our archive into our hands. So again, the cards that were archived earlier, we can choose to take all of our archive into our hand or none of it. We're going to take all of it, which means now we have those 2 Hapsises and Dysania, along with other cards that we've added to our hand. Of course, we should have forged our key as well. So 2, 4, 6, and second key, 1 to go. And look at all that Logos. So we're going to play the 2 Hapsises again. We're going to play Dysania. And again, this makes our opponent discard their whole archive. So this time they actually do have a card in their archive, that Bumblebird that got added. And we gain 1 for each card that was discarded this way. So this time it's doing something. We also get to play a Daughter who has only 2 power, but she's elusive, and we get an extra card as we refill at the end of each of our turns. We'll play a Cutthroat Research, which gives us 1 amber, and if our opponent had 8 or more, we would steal 2 of it, but that's not the case. Play a Reassembling Automaton, which when it's destroyed, it can come back, as long as it's not our only creature. And finally, the star of the show, Infomancer, elusive, 3 power. We graft an action card from our hand onto it. And that's why I put this deck together. I would have loved to have United Action so that we could use United Action every turn, but that won't be on display here because we got that ripped out of our hand early on in the game. But every time it reaps, we get to use the play effect of the grafted card. I actually have a couple great options here. One of them is Song of the Wild, which would be great to have every turn. With all of this reaping, we could get extra amber. But I think I'm actually going to choose Key Charge, which would potentially just let us win the game next turn if our opponent can't stop us basically now. So we're going to play Infomancer, graft the Key Charge onto it, and end our turn. Still have 5 cards which were untamed, and that is kind of the downside of taking your archive, is that if there's a bunch of cards you're taking into your hand that you're not going to be playing, it does clog up your hand and reduce the draws that you're going to get at the end of the turn. Oh, but because of Daughter, I get 1 more. This is sad. I should have played around this, but yeah, we have a Positronic Bolt, which can deal 3 damage to a flank creature, flank being a creature on either end of the battle line. So we can just deal 3 damage to the Infomancer and kill it. I think generally the flanks are the more vulnerable side, so I should have at least instinctually know that and put it farther inside. But because I think it's pretty clear player 1 would win on their turn with a few reaps and a key charge, I'm going to go ahead and live with my mistake. You just have to imagine that the Infomancer was successful. So we're going to deal 3 damage to that to prevent losing. That does send the grafted card, the key charge, along with it to the discard pile. Then we do 2, and then 1. Would have been nice if we could have taken out the daughter with that. Oh, on the Positron, Bolt also yields an amber, so that puts us up to 6 on this side. We can also play Mutagenic Serum, which is an artifact we won't be able to use this turn, but we get another amber. And it has Omni, which means we can actually activate that power on any turn, regardless of which house we chose. Except, again, it will be exhausted now, so I can't use it yet. And I have one more card. I'm not going to use it. Hold on to that. And ready up. Too bad they didn't have that hologramophone in time to ward the Infomancer and protect it. Probably still makes sense to choose logos and just do 5 reaps. Yeah, so we'll just play that hologramophone. That gives us 1. Apsises love to attack, but because of our own piece of cord, we don't really want to. And we would lose 4 amber, so let's not do that. And I'm just going to reap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, putting us up to 10 amber. Still have 6 cards, but because of daughter, we do get a 7. All right, player 2 gets to tie up the game with their 2nd key, but player 1's already threatening their 3rd. So can they stop it or not? Signs point to no. Yeah, there's nothing they've got that can prevent the forging of that 3rd key. So I will say the card from Logos that I kept last turn was It's Coming. Lets you search for half of a gigantic creature. It's really hoping to draw one of the halves. Only got to draw 2 cards out of this whole stack. There are 2 halves of a gigantic creature. So if we'd drawn one of those halves, we could have searched up the other. And then we would have been able to play Ultra Gravitron. Actually, the top half was right the very next card in our deck. There's just no way we could have picked it up. The luck of the draw. Ultra Gravitron would, when we play it, archive 5 cards from our deck, which actually wouldn't even help us. But he's big, and whenever he fights or reaps, we can discard a card from our archives to resolve each of its bonus icons. So this is a deck built around beasts. We saw a little bit like one Lumilu activation early on. And then, of course, the Ultra Gravitron that I'm showing off now, along with cards like these Essence Scales and Dominator Baubles. The idea was to be able to get extra uses out of Ultra Gravitron, as well as the Limilus on Dis turns, as well as their own natural, untamed, and logos turns. We even have a Fandangle, so creatures can, like Graviton, can enter play ready and activate right away, and things like that. So we don't get the Graviton. All we have to do, we can choose Dis, we can fight the officer, we can get this amber back, although we lost 4 for the piece of cord, get rid of that. And then we would probably, or actually our guy wouldn't even die because of his 2 armor, but we would let him, we'd kill him with our own Essence Scale just to trigger the destroyed effect, so we could steal 1 just because we really want to. And then because one of our creatures died, we could play Bonesaw ready, and then he could attack and maybe take out a Hapsis, and just because those are scary. If we wanted it to survive, we could fight the Dysania instead, and then we have a Soul Fiddle, which can enrage creatures, but not this turn, and that wouldn't help us anyway. So player 1 just forges their key and wins the game. So we didn't really get to see Infomancer in action. I'd love to get some of those like Dis type of cards, or these Dis cards in particular, or things that ready their allied creatures in order to be able to like use Infomancer right away, or use Infomancer on non-logos turns and things like that. Unfortunately, because I have to play that Infomancer with other Worlds Collide decks, I just don't have the right Worlds Collide pods to be able to get those type of effects. Like I cannot mix it with these cards because they're from the wrong set. And I don't want to change out my Star Alliance because that's where I have the United Action, which is my like primary combos to be able to use United Action, reap and otherwise use all of my logos cards, then use Infomancer last, which allows me to play cards of every house, as long as I have at least 1 card in play already. But this would have been pretty useful too, or what we saw earlier, if I had been able to have Infomancer with Key Charge and a bunch of logos creatures. I mean, I already had 2 keys at that point, but being able to reap 6 times and then forge a key is pretty powerful. And there's some other cool actions to repeat with Infomancer as well. Just didn't get to see it online yet, even though the deck did well and kind of crushed my beast deck. And again, that's another thing where I'd love to get more different beasts, but they have to be from Mass Mutation or I don't get to mix them, which is kind of frustrating. But I understand it's for balance's sake. So let me know what you think. I have a couple more Alliance decks built as well, or I'm still kind of working on finalizing what I might want to show them off as or try them out as. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Subscribe so we can get more subscribers, and bye.